You know, one of the best things about the media availability immediately before the draft is that you really kind of see from the coaches and the players, you get to see people who are genuinely excited about playing football again. Toward the end of a regular season where they know they're not going to go to the playoffs, the excitement is not exactly palpable. But when you get back and it's draft time, people kind of have some fizz to them. They get some carbonation, and you're going to see that in Shane Steichen.
Oh, yeah, I love Pitt. I love what Pitt has to thank. We take all recommendations from all sides. I'm sure you guys got your recommendations too. But there's a lot of good players in this draft. Obviously, finalizing that process here with Chris. So excited to see how it plays out.
Speaking of recommendations, Chris is always pretty good with giving you guys and the assistants kind of the players you've kind of pounded the table for. How important is that for you as a coach, knowing that if you see someone you really like, that your GM is going to take it into consideration?
Yeah, I think it's really important because you got to have a vision for the player that you draft. You got to know how you're going to use them. Obviously, as coaches, the scouts do a heck of a job on the road, going through examining the prospects. They put so much time into it. And then as coaches, obviously, when we watch the tape, we got to do a great job of explaining how we would use that player. Obviously, there's talented players in this draft, but again, you have to have a vision. So when we go in there and we read our draft reports, it's kind of like, hey, we like this guy and this is why and this is how we're going to use him. We don't just go in there and say, hey, this is a guy we like and let's draft him. You know what I mean? That just doesn't make sense. So we got to have a vision on how we're going to use him.
Shane, is there any kind of timetable for when you would like to have a decision made on your quarterback?
There's not.
Or do you want to take it to the very end?
Yeah, there's not. We're going to see how it all plays out, obviously, through OTAs and the training camp. Again, I said this in the spring with a few of you guys. It's really going to come down to who's the most consistent will win the job. That's what it's going to come down to. We'll let that process play out.
When you mentioned consistency, I guess what things are you looking at specifically that you would like to see both quarterbacks
Yeah.
do?
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's just the day-to-day process is part of it. Being a quarterback is the day-to-day grind that you go through is preparing every single day. That's part of consistency. And then obviously on the field, you got to be consistent, take care of the football, make good decisions with the football, and really move your offense down the field. You know what I mean? The guy that's the most consistent doing that, will win the job.
I know that you told Anthony what your plans were at quarterback, so there are no surprises here. But just in your interactions in person now with him, just what have you observed about his demeanor?
He's been great. We came in yesterday. Obviously, we started today. Had a really good conversation with him yesterday for about a half hour. He's excited to go compete.
When you looked at the offense last year, you went through, did the evaluation, did the lack of consistency stick out in terms of you guys hit big plays, but there were also these stretches of games where a lot more 3-and-outs than you probably like to have?
Yeah, yes, there was. There was a lot more than we'd like to have. I think the biggest thing as I look back on our season, I kind of hit it with you guys a little bit throughout the season, is playing that complementary football. I don't think we did that very well at all last year. And that's going to be a big point of emphasis going into this season. Obviously, how we practice in training camp, to put ourselves in those situations, sudden change situations, in the middle of practice. Whether it's shoot, hey, here it is. We just got to turn over on defense. Offense, you're up. Ball's on the minus 25. We got to go score. So we got to put them in those situations so we can play complementary football going forward.
You are looking to take another step offensively, obviously. And I think free agency, there's a lot of excitement about the defensive players you picked up. Daniel's here, but quarterback is not. There's not a huge change in quarterback. I guess what gives you confidence, or where do you derive confidence that you can take another step offensively this year with mostly the same personnel?
Yeah, I think going into year 3 is big. Obviously, in the system and with the guys that we have, we got a lot of really good players. Tony's done a heck of a job developing that offensive line. Obviously, we got some spots to fill there too. There'll be some good competition up front. I like our receiving core, where that's at. Obviously, we're looking, to add a pass catching tight end possibly. We'll see how that plays out. But obviously, JT's a good runner for us. So we got a nucleus of core players that are really good. And so we just need to build that chemistry. And, one of the goals this offseason and going into season is connection, man. You guys have heard me say when you're connected, you're committed. I think that's the culture you build. It's your daily habits. Going through that process to build it. So when you're going through the fire with these guys and you got to go make plays, everyone's got each other's back.
You're looking for that consistency at quarterback. I guess how do you weigh
maybe some of the playmaking upside. If one guy's making a lot of big plays but just isn't consistent, the other guy's consistent not making plays. I mean, is it just about the more consistent one, or how do you factor that in?
As far as what in positions in general?
Just a quarterback. You said like the most consistent guy.
Oh yeah. I think it's the most consistent guy. I really do, because at the end of the day, you got to be able to move the football consistently up and down the field and making good decisions. You know what I mean? I mean, at the end of the day, you can have splash plays, but if you're doing that, sparingly and up and down, I think it's got to be on a consistent basis, to get to where we want to go.
Has that changed? Has your philosophy on explosive plays changed at all?
And no, I still want to be explosive. I mean, no matter who the quarterback is, we want to be explosive on offense.
You just want to do it more often.
Correct. Makes sense to me.
I think on a basic level, I get the point. Like, they are different in that regard, the two quarterbacks. I mean, is that fair? Like, Daniel has been more consistent down to down, but maybe not as explosive. And much more explosive, not as consistent down to down. So what do you do with that?
Yeah, I think obviously we go through that. Obviously, he's learning this system. It's a new system for him, but he's shown that he can be explosive with his legs. Obviously, he's had a high completion percentage in his career, won a playoff game. He's done some really good things. So it'll be fun to see how it all plays out.
When you go back and you had a chance to go back and look at the way Pitt went through what he went through last year, how did you see what it limited him to do? And you've seen him really at his best. And then what did you take away from last year about how he persevered through all that?
Yeah, I mean, you heard me talk about it last year, Chad. I mean, just the resilience that he played with all year, battling through that back injury, especially. I think it just shows the toughness and the grittiness, that you want on your team and with certain players. And I think it kind of sent a message to the locker room, that hey, I'm going to play through things. I'm going to be there for my teammates, and that speaks volume of the person that he is.
At right guard, how do you kind of rein it in with Max Gonzalez being a talented player? You want to get more involved, but maybe not taking him away from the swing tackle role?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something we're working through right now. Obviously, you've got to fill that right guard spot, and we'll see how that plays out.
That's Shane Steichen. He didn't get specific, but you can tell he's a Tyler Warren guy. He'd like to get Tyler Warren. That's who he'd like to get. Although he didn't talk about blocking, did he, when he talked about a tight end? He talked about a receiving tight end, didn't he? So does that foretell kind of a Colston, Loveland, or a Taylor? What's he talking about here? Arroyo? Is he talking about Warren? I don't know what he's talking about. We're all going to find out together on Thursday, but always good to catch up with Shane Steichen.